All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for watching in advance here. It is 5:20 and it's Nvidia earnings day. Let's take a look here. Start out with that. All right, so here you go. So they ended up beating by, I guess, 6.5%. Nothing too like spectacular. If we look back at here, let's take a look. Look back at other earnings. About had the same, about 5%. It's a typical corporate accounting or corporate forecasting. It's pretty much like, it's pretty much just saying here that they've got all those sorts of like they underpromise over deliver kind of thing. But usually with the companies like this, it's like how much did they over deliver? So, anyways, the reaction's been a little bit muted here. We go on in the hourly chart. Yeah, it kind of looks like there's going to be just a regular, actually a better chart. 1 second. Here we go. So Nvidia itself here will probably see some sort of like a ABC down, maybe somewhere around there, but I still expect it to kind of continue upwards. This just looks like a common kind of retracement here. If we measure it, I'd say like your bifurcation level is probably, well, just hit it right on the nose there, that 216. There's a lot of options, gamma and things like that, between, I would say like before 204. So anything like lower than 204 is probably bearish, and anything above, I'd say like 228 is bullish. So for now, we'll just let that rest and let those guys fight it out tonight. For now, let's just take a quick look at some of the indexes. I'm not going to spend like a ton of time in it right now, just because we just had major earnings releases, and typically the first reaction is not really the actual expected reaction here. So let's take a look at some bullish scenarios here first, just because we've been in such a rip higher, to kind of set context here. Did some measurements, and these are more precise now. So I've got these drawings locked. So any levels that you see that are marked, like with fib levels, are the actual levels. So instead of just like kind of hand drawing it, sometimes it's a couple points up, points down, that kind of thing. So if you're looking to set like limit orders or stop losses or stuff like that, you can use these levels. Like for example, it's 4.618 level, which is typically like a wave 3 extension. So 29,875 is what I would expect the extension to be. So I guess in other words, if the price comes close to that or hits that, more often than not, you'll probably see at least like a small pullback or something like that. All right, so zooming out here, just wanted to kind of set context. This really does look like a very extended kind of wave 3. I guess you could say, or sorry, not wave 3, like a 5-wave sort of structure here. So if you kind of zoom out here, I've got this on a log chart, and I'm not sure what got screwed up here, but some got screwed up. Okay, well, anyways, you can still see the pattern here, and this kind of looks like a it does look like a breakout. We've got a kind of a pierce through this trend line here, but it's kind of been violated like twice already. So it kind of seems like a false breakout to me. We'll probably have a little more consolidation up here, but from a wave counting perspective, you can see. I don't know why I can't talk today. I don't know, maybe I'm having a stroke, but shouldn't joke about that. But you can really see how kind of clean this looks now, where you've got very kind of short wave 2. Just ripping higher, and then you've got a bit of a pause here. I mean, you could count it different ways, but in my opinion, it kind of looks like just a whole bunch of wave 5-wave series within within other 5 waves. So to me, this is excuse me. To me, this is like kind of like the last sort of wave 4 here of this cycle. So you can kind of see here that you're getting a little bit of movement after hours, and I guess as far as I'm concerned here, you've still got the like right around the 29,000 line here, which you could either see, bounce up, but if it doesn't do any bouncing anytime soon, this scenario might be invalidated for now. So let me kind of explain this. So I always like to try to cover both scenarios here, both bull and bear, just for alternatives here, just for informational purposes. So let's take a look at no, that's a bear scenario. One. Okay, so yeah, I think this is probably a good way to explain it here for the S&P as well. I mean, I can redraw it. That's not a problem. Let me see. Well, that's old. I've had a lot of my charts reset here, and I'm kind of thrown for a loop when I go back and look at these things. Okay, so the S&P, if we are going to see some sort of bullish scenario here, I think we have to kind of make like another lower low yet. Like, I don't know if markets are quite ready for that. Like, for example, hey, hold on, I know I'm jumping around a lot. I apologize, but just to kind of set context here, like if we do see something like this where it does turn into a head and shoulders, and if we don't see any bouncing, let's say around like the 73, 60s, that kind of thing for the S&P. For Nasdaq, like I said, it would be a little bit lower, like 28, 800, something like that. That could set up like a 5-wave. Sorry, what am I doing? I don't even know. Okay. So what I'm trying to articulate here is like, retracement got a little bit higher than like your typical 0.5. It kind of looks like markets don't like what's going on here, and this just kind of opened here over the last 10 minutes. So what we're trying to figure out here is really where it's going to bounce. So this kind of, I'd say, very short-term bearish scenario. You could see something like this where you get like a deeper cut, and then you get a bounce, and then you get a continuation. I kind of favor this scenario a little bit more now that I'm kind of seeing how fast these things are selling off here. But nothing's really a guarantee. So I think if we do see something like this, I think longer term it'll be this kind of wave, this wave 4 we've been talking about here, and then I think that could set up another run higher to this to this extension level, which I marked here at this 75.48. So really like 75.50, I think is probably going to be our maximum here if we do have another run. I mean, it kind of seems like we will. Like we've already had a huge enough run here. Why not try to bounce it hard and get another rally here? But I guess the two scenarios that kind of seem to be emerging here are it's really just the style and the speed of the pullback. So instead of showing just the bearish scenario here, I wanted to try to show like what the next setup would be. So you could have something like this where you get a bit deeper of a cut, and then you get a bunch of dip buyers that come in here, and then you could see maybe something like this where you get another charge higher, and then that could make this kind of like a megaphone sort of pattern. I don't really like megaphone patterns. I don't think they're very reliable from a trading perspective. But what I do find reliable very often are these fib extension levels, especially when it's a 5-wave sort of structure or just bullish in general. So anytime you see these extension levels, I don't typically see pivots really at the like 361 levels, but definitely at the 461 levels. So I don't want to get too nerdy on there. I don't want to put you all to sleep, but especially if you're watching this after hours. But I would say this is a possibility here. The only other, I guess, bullish possibility I could see is more of a continuation of this sort of ending diagonal, whatever you want to call it. You could still see something like this where you get it's not really like a wave 5. Maybe it's maybe you get a bounce like this. Maybe it's a little bit muted and you get some sort of head and shoulders pattern, but you still get a new higher high, like a marginal high here. We could even get a bit more of a sharper pullback. But typically, like, you want to look for head and shoulders or like inverted sort of patterns. This seems a little like not really symmetrical, but still, it's an option. So I don't want to just discount it. That this is, let's say, like a longer term kind of wave 4 before you get some sort of other push, push higher. And that I would say this is probably, so the S&P view is probably more consistent with what I would expect. Just some profit taking and just general consolidation around the highs here. But it's really not that big of a range. I mean, you're really talking about, yeah, I mean, 2.5%. I mean, that kind of reminds me of like a normal summer, where you just kind of grind around the tops and stuff. I hope we don't have that. A little bit of volatility is good for everybody. Trading volumes kind of dry up, especially when you're closer to the top here. But so, anyways, hopefully that makes sense here. I guess just wanted to say that I'd say like I'd favor like a more shorter term bearish scenario, but it still sets up like another run higher. And I would say good points to focus on. Maybe like 72.90. I mean, I've got this level marked here. This 72.82. It's probably like probably a little bit lower than what I would expect, but I'd say in general, if you get like 7,300, that's probably your signal there that dip buys kind of imminent here. Here, actually, I bet you it's equal C. That's why I marked it. Well, I'll figure it out though. Anyways, so hopefully that's clear. Does that make sense at all, or did I go too fast, or did you just joined? Okay, good. All right, so I guess those are kind of the scenarios. Like it's kind of tough to tell, especially when you just had Fed meeting minutes released. You've got some other more Iran ultimatum crap stuff going on. I mean, markets do need a little bit of to let off a little bit of steam here. If you look at the RSI, it's still pretty inflated. I can't see anything on that. If you look at it, it's still pretty inflated overall here. If you look at the market breadth chart here, it's increasing a little bit, but nothing. I mean, it's disproportionate. It's you can still see there's just a massive divergence here. So again, it is more supportive of the bearish sort of short-term scenario here, but that doesn't necessarily mean longer term it's done. I'm looking, like typically when you get a decent correction, you see like 2 or 3 down days that are, I would say, about the same with percent, like 2 or 3%, and those kind of signal your like, hey, we're done here kind of thing. We're all out of inventory. We got to sell this thing down. And if you saw something like that, I mean, let's say you get a day tomorrow, you're down 2%, and then another day, 2.5 or whatever. It's still a pretty decent step down. You get to like the 7,000s here. I mean, that's still a nice. Sorry, not 7,000s. Get to 7,100, that kind of thing. But still, coming from 7,400 is a pretty decent drop. But that's kind of what I'm looking for here when it comes to any sort of correction. So these little like 0.5% pullbacks. I mean, that's not a precondition for for like a pullback. It's more about this just looks like consolidation to me and more distribution. All right, so that's the indexes. I don't want to beat it to death. I think one last thing I guess to mention is the Dow here is really struggling to get above that 50,000. I think the Dow is kind of peaked for now. You can also kind of tell where you've got this like kind of rounded top here. Could also be like some sort of inverted cup and handle here, but it's too soon to tell. But what I do know is that you're still getting resistance here from just some decently high selling. Zoom in here because the Dow typically leads. So I don't really think we're seeing like a sector rotation or anything. I think we probably would have seen that by now. We're seeing a little bit more selling with Nasdaq, and maybe see a little bit more aggressive buying with the Dow. But you can kind of see that where we had a little bit of a dip here, and then you've had high volume since. But I mean, there hasn't really been an answer yet for this sort of trend line hit, and this just happened like right at the end of the day today. So I think that you'll probably see some sort of rejection, or at least 50% down. All right, let's move to some other stuff. Yeah, and hopefully I'm not just blasting through this stuff. I'm trying to, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to keep it brief, but also, we've got a lot of uncertainty that's going on, and we could have different news tomorrow, and we could have a completely different story. So I'm always open to doing like another webinar if we get some major changes, like off the regular schedule. All right, so let's just take a quick look here, like at yields. Yields, we've got a back test of this trend line here, and it survived, I think you could say, at least for now. So if we ended up getting like another bounce higher here, I do think we're going to head up to probably like this 4.78 sort of level here. I mean, anything above 4.3% is awful for equities, but so far they keep defying gravity. You really can't fight it. So you've got many different things that impact. Yeah, I won't show you the line chart. That's like line soup, but really I'm just looking for correlations. So if you see like a big drop with yields, then typically you would see like an inverse relationship with equities, but you're not really seeing that. You're kind of seeing both, like just general like unease and selling off. It's also earnings week. But yes, anyways, the yield I think is going to keep going up here, but it's also kind of tied to oil. Gold has had kind of a weird reaction. Gold went up, which is what I would expect with yields going down. But I mean, at least with its current covariance. But overall, I still think it's got a little bit more to go down. You could probably start, if you wanted to go long gold, you could probably start averaging, averaging in here. But I still want to give it just a little bit more time here. I think it'll head down just a bit more before I buy into like GLDI, and I'll probably buy in like 2 units or a decent amount, just because I think that metals are going to catch a tailwind here after this consolidation period. I think that this is like a longer term sort of wave 4. And again, what is going on with my chart? Okay, but anyways, you can kind of see what I'm saying. So there's like bull flags everywhere with metals. If you look at something like silver, silver's still got a flag here. I mean, this one looks a little bit more bearish, but I don't think it's actually going to be as extreme as this. Right now, I'm just drawing it to the trend lines, but you could still make the argument that it's like a kind of a lazy bull flag here. You can still see a couple ABCs within it. So we might actually get it where you get this kind of pullback, and then maybe it goes a little bit lower, and it could be like a false breakout lower, and then you get like a serious dip buy. And if this does happen, I am a very large buyer of silver, at least shares, not actual silver. All right, so kind of the same here for gold. Gold's not really getting sold down much, but if you are gonna consider getting in here, I would say this 4,400 level is a pretty good level to buy back in. And if it does head a little bit lower than that, I would say this 4,270 level is probably your second low. So that's why I marked it this extension zone here. It doesn't really have the same counts as silver does. So this one's a little bit harder to read, but I still think that gold's a little more resilient to buying and selling here. All right, let's talk oil. So oil had a bit of a slip today, but this kind of seems like a normal B wave. It could have been any news. The news today was there's more negotiations are taking place, but as I mentioned in chat earlier, it's more of the same. Same news, same crap, just on repeat. I bet you tomorrow we'll hear Iran's being threatened to be bombed again or something like that. And I mean, it doesn't matter. So the key things to take away from oil is that it's still remaining elevated. It's still going to be elevated. And what's gonna really jack the price of oil, I think, is when all this supply that a lot of these developed countries flooded the markets with, it dries up. So and also too, when the strait opens, there's going to be a lag of supply to catch up. So the longer and longer it stays closed, the longer and longer supply is going to take to catch up. And on top of that, there's all these other countries that have essentially depleted their reserves, and there's just nothing left. So diesel is going to remain high for a while, and that's just inflation. You already saw PPI going nuts last week. Same thing with CPI. So if this keeps up for another month, I think anybody who would be in office running for office in November is going to be cooked, no matter who your no matter who your who your side is. I just think it's it's just the nature of the game. It's always about the economy and people's wallets. So natural gas, it creeped up a little bit here, but it's nothing to nothing to shake a stick at just quite yet. Actually plan to try to close out any long gas trades, just because it's not a performer right now. It's not really making lots of moves, and it's been consolidating like for forever, and it's just kind of boring. So until we get some more action here, I think I'd like to try to exit longs. They're pretty close. They're just a little bit underwater, but not too much. It's within I'd say about a 2 or 3 kind of percent move. All right, Bitcoin here. Hey, Don. Bitcoin is still kind of on the slide here. What I expect it to do is, like this doesn't really seem like a very this is not like a proper kind of wave 3. So I think we're still getting this sort of like corrective, this kind of like series of ABCs, and you can kind of see that here. Like this sort of irregular pattern that I flagged before. Like this is a classic irregular pattern, but the C leg here, I've seen some drawings like this that are not correct. You can't really have overlap and stuff like that. So it's really more of like, I think maybe more of a, like this is your C leg here where it goes extended. This 42,000 level, this is, I believe, the A equals 1.236C or something like that, which is like, I guess, other than doing like live measurements and stuff here, I think probably what I'll do is I'll just talk it through like what I expect to see. You'll probably just see like, tiny little ABCs that turn into bigger ones. I mean, I know it's not like a scientific way to say it, but this is kind of what I look for when I'm looking at all these different all these different kind of like sell-off things. So really what you're looking for is a breach of this bear flag. And once you breach that level, then I think you'll see a pretty decent slide. But I honestly don't think it's gonna tip over yet until we get some sort of rollover in it with indexes. So I mean, it got pretty close to this retracement level. We'll see if it actually performs or not. But again, that's what I'm looking for, is just a bunch of ABCs. But once we break this level down, or if we do, I guess we're not seeing a lot of volume, but if we see this level kind of break down here, that's where I expect to see some acceleration. But if it does get this low, I mean, I think it'll probably stop somewhere around like 50,000, maybe like 52. I think that was the other measurement I had a while back. But once it gets down to that level, I think I'm a buyer, like a longer term buyer, like a BITI. Let's see, what is that fund? It's BTCI. That's the like the high income ETF. Pretty much all that is just like a covered call kind of ETF where they try to generate income or something like that through the different positions. But we'll talk more about that when it becomes time to do that. Stocks. This one is not my favorite lately. It's tough to kind of put a pulse on this one. I think this one has also got one of these weird, five-wave sort of things here. But what's really throwing me off is this sort of thing in the middle. This to me just kind of looks like maybe we had this. I mean, I can clearly see like a 5-wave structure here for stocks, where it might have just already peaked, and we just don't want to acknowledge it. So, but it's a very extended kind of wave 5, and I don't really. I'm sorry if you hear sounds in the background. I've got my kids yelling about something. So he'll be all right though. All right. So anyways, I also kind of like a peak here at this like 533.75. Like it's not really like a round number. It's not really kind of ringing a bell here. So I don't know if it's like topped quite yet, but anyways, I still think we'll see some sort of like some sort of rip down here if we do get some sort of selling with some of the chips. Now that Nvidia earnings are over, I think it's kind of primed and ready to go. So I'll kind of keep that here and see if that's see if that actually plays out. But yeah, I would say like 450 is probably a good level to think through here. All right, Nvidia. Yeah, I think we already covered that at the beginning. Yeah, I don't expect it to really drop too low. I guess it probably already would have done that by now. Plus, there's also a lot of vested interest in like keeping the market up. So I don't think you're going to get a big move there, because that could probably spook some people. So this chart, Rule, is that? Do you have the background noise there?
Say again.
Do you have the background noise there? Get a little background noise. All right. Well, anyways, here. So I have with Tesla here. If you were short, that was a very nice move to catch down. I exited TSLQ. That was timed well, I think. I probably could have squeezed a little bit more out of that, but I'd rather not. So on a retrace, because this looks like a pretty clear ABC to me. So put this in white for a little contrast. It looks like a pretty clear ABC to me, and I think now what you're going to see is, here, let me do this a little wider. I think now probably what you're going to see here is you'll probably see another like ABC like this, where you see a little bit more of a retrace, and then potentially you'll see like that looks a little weird. 1 second. I'll try to. This is kind of what I mean by like little ABCs. So like you might see something like this within the structure. And here, let me, just for educational purposes. I know the labels are not quite correct here, but this is kind of what I mean, where you'll see like a like a little bit of a bounce, and then it goes a little bit lower, and then you get a little bit longer of a bounce, and maybe you'll see some sort of head and shoulders develop here. And that's just the grind back and forth. So I always try to look at these things with through the appropriate lens, but you're always surprised sometimes. So this is the this bear target 1. This is the 0.618 retrace from that entire move we had up. What was that? Yeah, so like peak to trough here from the bottom. Sorry, it's probably not easy to see, but anyways, that's kind of what Tesla looks like. So that's kind of it. I didn't want to go too deep, just because there could be a lot of changes that have to happen here.
What if that low was the low in Tesla?
Good question. All right, if that was the low in Tesla, then what I would do is I would look for a proper pullback. So right now we just got like a. Let me get this out of the way. Let me do an hour. So I think what you, if that was like the low, then I would look for another sort of pullback. So right now it's already got to, it's like 50. It's 50 level. Or sorry, it's 50% pullback from like peak to trough of the last move. You could see like it's kind of it's been invalidated that there's anything impulsive here, because you've got like an overlap already. So you've got anything beyond this wave 1 is not gonna work. So it still looks more corrective, but you could still get higher highs with a corrective move. So you could see, let's say this is again like a bigger ABC. So this I think would be your bullish scenario, if this was, or if this does kind of continue to keep rolling here, and this might be like a giant wave 4. That's entirely possible. I can't discount that, but like a ABC kind of move here to put you back up to like 500. And that's kind of where it came from. So I would say it could be another double top. But yeah, I mean it's very possible. I mean, you could buy the dip here, and I think you'd be all right. Let me measure this here, Because if it heads down again, like if you see something kind of like this, or it gets you like a lower low, I would buy that dip. Because then you could have a launch like crazy from there. But even with the last earnings, even though what they did a beat and everything, I still think that you're going to get some. Well, I guess let me say it like this. I would say if you're going to plan it, if you do get another little retrace here, and you end up taking profits, like you might even get another pullback here, but I think it would be before SpaceX launches. Pun intended, I guess. Once the SpaceX IPO goes live, it's going to drain a lot of liquidity out of the market. But anything Elon Musk related, I think, is going to be a buy, just because. So, so I would say, if you're looking to get back in Tesla, which I am, I mean, I like Tesla. But if you're looking to do that, I would say like your levels here, like 381, 362. Or those are levels that I would consider buying back in. But it kind of depends on the speed of which there's really no control. So if we have a kind of really small pullback, or like a really small rally here, and then we get another kind of a quick low, then I'd say it's viable. Does that answer your question, Don?
Yeah, well, I'm expecting the SpaceX thing to have an effect. So I'm holding the TSLL
Okay.
still, but I bought a put spread
Okay.
for the end of May to cover myself a little.
Okay.
Just in case it pulls back first.
Yeah.
So I got like a 390, 375 put spread.
Okay.
Figuring if there's one more dump, I won't get killed.
Yes. Good way to put it.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking that the low we made back, what was it, at 318, 330, whatever it was down there. That might be a major low.
Oh yeah, yes. Yeah, this one prior to earnings, yeah. You also got a lot of you got a big buy spike here too. So yeah, that to me is institutional interest. Plus also too trying to keep driving past driving past resistance. Because I think this bull target too was like a 0.618 or whatever the level was. Like there's yeah, it's right in the middle there. There wasn't anything clean about it. But I do see some volume kind of declining here. So I wonder if
So
I
I'm a
would say
little leery of the next week or so, but after that, I think the SpaceX thing is going to drive it up.
yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I guess I like the stock. I don't know. I think Tesla's got a lot of good business.
The upside is who knows.
Yeah, of course. So I guess one other thing I wanted to cover real quick is some of the quantum stocks, and then we'll wrap up for the day here. All right, so hopefully my drawings on these didn't get all reset again. They might. Looks like they did. Come on. Can't win, guys. Can't win. Let's see what we got here. I guess it's a all right chart. We'll go back to the other one. Okay. Yeah, sorry guys. I really don't know what happened. I think some sort of setting got turned off or whatever, but anyway, so we've got all this sort of stuff here. I think probably what we're going to see is, I mean, this does look like a ABC up, something like this, but I don't think it's quite complete yet. You've got a low here, but I mean, you got some earnings, it's still not like, truly profitable, I guess you could say, but for D-Wave, they've been releasing a ton of articles about like, we've had technological improvements and this, that, and the other thing. So, it keeps kind of butting up against this 200 DMA and it keeps getting sold down. But I think that there's been enough energy behind it where if you get another go at it, you can probably look at something like 28. And I do have these on log, by the way, so it kind of looks a little bit worse, I guess, than it would be. But the log charts, I think, kind of eliminate some noise and put stronger moves in context. But I also want to be clear here too that like this is a pretty clear back test to me, where you can definitely see that we've got this very pronounced kind of bullish sort of pattern. And I think you kind of see that with other stocks as well, or some of the other quantums as well. This one to me is an even bigger or an even larger, longer term pattern, where you've got this kind of flag thing going on here. So this could be a nice viable dip, and if anything is, or anything, if this stuff is typically like it is still speculative. These guys don't really make a lot of money, but they are still the ones that have that moat, that competitive advantage here, and they got a lot of government funding. So that's, in my opinion, what's going to drive a lot of these things. RGTI, this one, I'm actually surprised this one is not higher. So this, these guys have had a lot of good publicity. Yeah, and they've still got some revenue and stuff too. So they're getting early customers. It's just a matter of do investors see the value yet? This one doesn't really look too much like a bull flag. I mean, I guess you could say it's kind of like a descending channel or whatever, but it still doesn't look like an obvious pattern. But usually it's the same sort of scenario with all quantums, like they just go up or they go down together. But I still think it's overall bullish here of an industry. IonQ, this one's probably the best performer. This one here, the bull flag, or the bull channel, whatever you want to call it, this one played out really, really well. Where you didn't even really get much of a lower low. You got a ton of buying under here, and that was when they had that news release. So this one here is, they haven't even looked back. They've just been kind of bouncing on this moving average here, which I think is a really good sign. I know Alex still doesn't like quantum stocks, but yeah, I think you gotta look to the future with this stuff.
IonQ is definitely the strongest one.
Yeah.
That's where the money's been flowing, that's for sure.
Right. If you do like just a normal price chart on this, you can kind of see it's got that first initial spike was really nice. But since I do feel like this is sort of like a consolidation move where institutions have been accumulating. So I kind of think about it like, oh, what happened here? Jeez. Okay. Anyways, long story short about it is, like, usually when you get some people think like, oh, it's kind of garbage stock because it keeps going down. Well, it's kind of by design, because they want to pick up all the shares and buy them low. So nobody's doing this type of stuff unless they have unless they spent 15 days accumulating shares, and then of course you drive it up 35% or whatever, and then there you go. But that's just kind of like it's just kind of like a pump and dump kind of scheme here. But longer term, I think like a lot of the institutions are accumulating shares because they don't really know who's going to be successful. It's kind of like it's like the .com companies. Like they just, people kept buying shares because nobody knew who was going to win. But eventually you figure out who is. But it's kind of like a cost averaging game for these guys. So when you see these lower prices, like with the quantums, like all throughout fall and winter and stuff, when when my quantum positions were getting a little beaten up, just kept reiterating that it's like, this is kind of the phase that they're in. They had their first initial spike. It's it's a viable technology. It looks like it is the future here for computing power, not just like GPUs and Nvidia, stuff like that. I actually think Nvidia's got a lot of catching up to do. They've got a quantum computing division, but they're leaps and bounds behind IonQ and like D-Wave. So those are my thoughts on that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Any questions, comments, concerns? I must have done a great job explaining that. Okay, guys. Well, thanks a lot for joining. I appreciate it. And if you got any questions, you know where to find me.
Okay.